All right, so welcome everyone. Welcome. This is David McQuell hosting Global Impact tonight on TECNTV.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really trust God that tonight we'll have a good time as we look and reflect again on the Kenyan elections that is closing now, already closing. So we're going to look at the elections. Basically, like we said yesterday, we're going to look at the Kenyan elections. So I'd really like you to give me your good attention today. It's really interesting to understand what's going on around the world, not just what happens in your country. And studying about Kenyan elections gives you a lot of understanding. I saw some things and I was like, wow, that's really good. And then I saw some things and I was like, okay. All right, so, and there was a lot of eye-opening issues coming out of this election. So please just tune in. This is Global Impact. I'll be right back after this break.
Hello, everyone. This is Global Impact with David McQuell, your host. Isaiah chapter 2 verses 1 to 5 says that a time is coming when the church will rise in authority and influence and dominate the earth. And many nations will come and say, teach us the ways of the Lord. Global Impact is a show that inspires you as a Christian to rise up through the values of the kingdom of God and shine as light wherever you may be. We believe that missions is no longer limited to some isolated, unreached community in some dark continent. The church should reach out to all aspects of life, including politics, business, science and research, the media and diplomacy, and every aspect of human life. Join us on Global Impact, Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time and 6 p.m. GMT. Global Impact is broadcast on TECNTV.com. Join us.
All right, welcome back. Welcome to this great moment today as we look at Kenya. Kenya decides today. Kenya votes, whatever you want to call it. Kenya elects. The general elections for Kenya is holding in 2022. This is probably 5 years. Yes, 5 years after the last elections, because the Kenyan election electoral system is that everyone elected, especially in the office of the president, serves two-term limits of two terms of 5-year period. So Uhuru Kenyatta won the election from, I believe, Mwai Kibaki. And again, he was the second time. Also, he beat Raila Odinga to win the second term, which is second term is coming to its logical end now. And so elections again are running, and there are a few candidates who are running, but prominently 2 of them. And we will all be looking at that and see how this is really important. I was trying to see the position of the church, in which I just couldn't get to see, but I probably along the line we're going to look at something and see. And so I'll be right back after this brief introduction. Okay, this is beautiful. This is great. Yeah.
2022, in just over 9 hours, this election will be decided by 22,120,388 registered voters, according to the IEBC. Now, those 22 million of them will be spread out across 46,229 polling stations. Now, each polling station will have a maximum of 700 people. In the next 9 hours, Victoria, when they wake up, what will they find at the ballot box?
Well, hopefully they get out to vote early. 6 a.m. is when the polling stations actually open. So let's take you through that voting process step by step. It's simple, but it needs to be seamless. And you need to have your national ID and or your passport, whichever you registered with. And you'll take that over to the polling clerk. They will then authenticate your documents with the KIMS kit. Once they have verified your identity, they will hand over 6 stamped ballot papers for the 6 positions that Kenyans will be voting tomorrow. They're all color-coded, and you will be seeing that a bit later on. Now, those ballot papers you'll be taking into the voting booth, where you'll be marking them secretly. What happens there?
Absolutely, and that's an important point, Vicky, because there are almost 4 styles of marking these ballot papers, and that was authenticated by the IEBC, and I'm about to show you how it works. So imagine you've picked a ballot paper. You can either tick, you can either mark an X, or you can do an hyphen like that, or a dot. Now, you cannot do all of them. Let me show you what happens. You're supposed to pick just one of them and put it in the person you're voting for. So if you're voting for person 1, all you need to do is mark a tick there, and that's all you need to do. You can't mark a tick and an X for the person you're allegedly not voting for. This becomes a spoiled vote. At the same time, you cannot mark outside or crisscross both of them. It is again a spoiled vote. At the same time, you cannot pick or mark in the same box 2 of them like that. That is still a spoiled vote. So the IEBC is saying you're safer off marking just the person you want with the one symbol, either an X or a tick, but not in the same place, because it also becomes a spoiled vote. That is how simple it will be when the time comes. But the ballot papers will be color-coded, Vicky.
Indeed, they will. And also, there was some misinformation circulating on social media platforms saying that if your candidate of choice does not appear on the ballot paper, you can write their name and mark right next to it. That becomes a spoiled
Another
vote
spoiled vote.
And does not count. So beware of that. So once you get your ballot papers marked in the voting booth, you'll come out and you'll be directed by the polling clerk to put them in the ballot boxes that are color coded. So white for the presidential ballot paper, blue for the gubernatorial ballot paper, green for MP, yellow for senator, beige for MCA, and of course pink for woman representative. And then you will get that indelible ink mark on one of your fingers to show that you did indeed vote on August 9th. And once you have that, you exit the polling station. And it's as simple as that, Trevor.
That's how simple it will be at the time when you head to the ballot box and the voting process begins in the next 9 hours from now, right? When we come back, we're giving you the latest in the news world. A lot has been going on, and there's been a lot of reaction as well. We have all our reporters across the different places. We're crossing over to them to give you the latest as the countdown begins. Only 9 hours. We never thought we'd be here, right, Vicky?
It was months, and then weeks, days, and now hours, Trevor.
It was years, then months.
You are right.
All right, welcome. Thank you so very much for that short reporting from the Kenyan television, I believe. Yesterday, it was a report yesterday giving us the the instructions, the process of voting. I think for me as an observer, it looks like it's too complicated, because there might eventually be a lot of lost ballots, because some people, no matter how many people have access to television to understand these instructions, I don't know how prepared they are to educate voters. I don't know how the voters are well educated in Kenya. But I wish that they just pick one way of voting, either ticking it or a dot or a line. I mean, whatever it is, I mean, it would have probably been more easier to understand. So Kenya's election is not much different from Africa's elections. Most elections in Africa are basically the same thing. Lots of issues rise up, and so we're going to look at what were the rising issues as the countdown to this election began. And KTN News is here with, we have a recorded edition of KTN, which is Kenya Television, I believe, and Kivumbu is going to share with us, what are the matters that arose as a result of this election, as Kenyans, began to go into the polls and began to look at different issues and looking at how they are going to, have to deal with many issues that arose as a result of this election. So here she is. So we're going to watch this, and I believe that it's clearer, and it's been long, but we'll cut it off. But looking at some of the issues, for example, people protesting and disagreeing with some things, matters, issues that arose, and how the state handled it, which was a matter of concern, and will it affect the elections? Let's have a look at it.
Fresh ones at their own course. So just some of the highlights that we are getting there from Rita Tinina. And you will remember that throughout this process, in the preparations for tomorrow's polls, there has been very deliberate efforts to involve the diaspora vote. And we want to bring in my colleague Timothy Otieno, who is based in the United Kingdom and joins us now live just to talk to us about the diaspora vote, how the preparations are going from that end. And a very good evening to you, Tim. I know you're 2 hours behind us. What can you tell us about what the feeling is like ahead of the polls?
Well, good evening to you too, Sharon. It's good to speak to you, good to see you. Now, here in London, which will be one of the polling centers as part of the diaspora votes, it's been all systems go. In fact, the members and officials from the IEBC have been holding consultative meetings with the staff here at the Kenya High Commission just to make sure that the process tomorrow is as seamless and as smooth as possible. About an hour ago, a high-stakes meeting concluded. I was able to sit briefly into that meeting just to try and gauge the level of preparedness by both the High Commission to host this particular event, as well as the IEBC to be able to conduct these particular elections. Now, maybe you can see, or maybe you can't, but there's a list of names behind me attached here at the entrance of the Kenya High Commission. Now, this list contains the names of the registered voters here in the United Kingdom. Remember, the United Kingdom comprises of ideally 4 nations: England, where we are, there's Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. So it's estimated that Kenyans have been spread far and wide in this particular country, forming the United Kingdom, and their names should be here if indeed they were able to register during the first phase of the registration last year and the second phase, which began earlier this year. Now, in London, there have been about 798 official registered voters who are expected to make their way to the High Commission tomorrow from 6 a.m. when the doors open. But the IEBC, according to their website, has been able to register 10,444 diaspora voters, which forms the largest number of diaspora voters in Kenya's electoral history. Now, this is a pool of voters that comes from 12 different countries. If I could maybe be able to remember them, I hope I will, Sharon. If you're a diaspora voter in Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, South Africa, the United Kingdom, where I am, the United States, the United Arab Emirates, Germany, Canada, and Qatar are the 12 countries. I hope I got all of them. Kenyans in those countries and in specific cities within those countries will be able to exercise their democratic right tomorrow, making it one of the most historic electoral processes in the country. Now, in regards to the technicalities, first and foremost, the IEBC has informed us that you will be allowed to vote if you're in the diaspora if you carry the document which you used to register as a voter earlier on this year. So for instance, if someone registered with their Kenyan passport or the East African passport, then that is the document you have to carry with you tomorrow. Do not carry your ID if you did not register with your Kenyan ID. The reverse is also true. If there's a Kenyan living in the diaspora in any of the 12 nations that have listed who registered with their ID, then that is the document they have to carry with them at the polling centers in which they are going to vote. If you carry your passport as opposed to your ID, yet you registered with your ID, the IEB says you will not be allowed to register. In regards to the diaspora vote, it should be an easy process on the face of it because remember, Sharon, only the presidential ballots have been distributed to the 12 countries involved in the diaspora voting. So once somebody makes their way to the High Commission or the embassy, depending on which part of the world the Kenyan is, you check your list, you check your name if it's on the list, after which you're ushered into the High Commission. From that particular point, you will be, the IEBC officials rather will check that you are actually registered on the online registration biometric system, after which you're given a presidential ballot paper. You have to ensure the ballot paper is stamped at the back, otherwise that vote will not be counted and will not be deemed to be valid. After you've been given the ballot paper, you've
All right, so that's really incredible. I love this video we just watched because it truly gives exactly how elections are conducted all over Africa. All over Africa, the issue of identification is never an issue. And I think in most countries it is, except the battle in the United States where some people or some parties, or rather another party, or one of the parties do not think that it's necessary to get IDs, But in Africa, and look at the deliberate explanation process in which everything goes through, you go through a proper vetting system. In fact, if you have a Kenyan national ID and you live in the diaspora, you have a Kenyan national ID, but you didn't register with it, but you register with your Kenyan passport or some East African valid passport. It is the same ID that with which you registered for the election, for voting, that you will take again to go. That is to ensure that there is no error, that no impersonification, no invalid identification, or no mixed up anywhere, Why? Because it's really proper to be sure that you have the right person voting, Like in the previous video we watched, they have the exact number of people who will be voting, who should be voting. They know how many people, people exactly to the last figure, last digit 8. They know the number of people who will be voting, and they are expecting that all those votes, when counted ultimately together, and the spoiled ballots, as they call them, spoiled ballots, ballots with defects, once they are removed, they expect that figure will be rounded up to the figure, the sum total of all the candidates. I think there are about 4 or 5 candidates contesting. So if at the end of the day, 5 candidates, the sum total exceeds the total number of votes voted plus the discarded votes, which are the spoiled ballots, then something is gravely wrong somewhere. There must be an investigation, which simply means that there were illegal ballots added to it. And you see how the system is so easy, and so much effort has been put into it by the Kenyan Electoral Commission, which is IEBC or something like that, I believe. They took the time to be sure that everything is thoroughly done, even for the diaspora. Those living in foreign countries, there is a process, there is a way, and there is a way in which they are going to vote. So, who are the candidates who are contesting? It is important for us to look at that and hear what they say. Now, so let's have a look. I believe that this should give us an idea about what's going on in Kenya. In the second half of this show, of course, as we are coming close to the break time, in the second half of this show, we will talk about the issues that are really relevant in the Kenyan election. So I'll be right back after this video.
They've got policies ranging from helping hustlers to selling hyena testicles. So who are the 4 main candidates vying to be Kenya's next president? Standing for the Kenya Kwanza Alliance on August the 9th is Deputy President William Ruto, though he does not have the backing of his boss. President Uhuru Kenyatta instead supports Ruto's main rival, Raila Odinga, though such shifting allegiances are not unusual in Kenyan politics. An eloquent orator, Ruto has pledged to boost spending for small farmers and private businesses and reform national health insurance and social security funds.
We are running on an economic platform.
The former roadside chicken seller portrays himself as representing working-class hustlers against wealthy political dynasties. In a 2007 election, Ruto sided with Odinga and lost. Around 1,200 people died in the violence that followed. Ruto was later charged with crimes against humanity at the International Criminal Court for his alleged role. He denied any wrongdoing and the case collapsed. Odinga is running for president under the Azimio la Umoja alliance, which includes Kenyatta's Jubilee Party. Kenyatta is the son of Kenya's first president, Odinga of its first vice president. A former political prisoner, Odinga says the last 3 elections were stolen from him.
A person of conscience and with very strong convictions.
Like Ruto, he's promised to stamp out widespread corruption. He's also pledging a monthly stipend for the unemployed, universal healthcare, and free education for all. He named his eldest son Fidel in a nod to his left-wing sympathies. The election is seen as a tight race between Ruto and Odinga. 2 more candidates, David Mwouri Wahiga and George Wajackoyah, are polling in the single digits. However, their votes could deny Ruto or Odinga a majority, pushing the electoral battle into a second round. Wahiga is a lawyer running on the Agano Party of Kenya ticket. He says he'll tackle corruption and publish government contracts for major infrastructure projects. Some of the more eye-catching policies have come from Wajackoyah, who describes himself as a lawyer, academic, and former spy. To tackle Kenya's external debt, he wants to legalize the cultivation of marijuana for industrial and medical use and start exporting hyena testicles and snake venom. He also plans to suspend parts of the constitution for 6 months and hang anyone convicted of corruption. Wajackoyah has attracted some young voters and enraged many religious leaders.
All right, welcome back. Thank you so very much. That's it about the 4, briefly about the 4 candidates, Kenya is interesting to realize that Kenya is, of the 85 million people, there are about 60 million of them are Christians, or a little less than that. Christianity is prominent among them. But Kenya has a history of violence, as we remember the last elections, where there was a lot of violence and a lot of spilling of blood. And so we're going to be looking briefly at this example, in 2007, I believe.
Raila Odinga says he is campaigning for change. It's his 5th run for president. This time he has the backing of outgoing President Uhuru Kenyatta. In a packed stadium, Odinga made his final pitch to Kenyans, reminding his supporters about his struggle for democracy.
I will shake their hand if I win, and I will shake their hand if I don't. And I will do it because I love Kenya more than I love Raila Amolo Odinga.
Those who turned up for this rally say they trust him.
I believe things will change because Raila has done a lot for us.
William Ruto, the other main presidential candidate, assembled his supporters in different parts of Nairobi and central Kenya. Ruto is the deputy president, but has fallen out with his boss. He says he wants to focus on what he calls the bottom-up economy and empower Kenyans financially.
They say this was a constitutional moment. We told them no, this is an economic moment.
There are many things we are expecting, and we know he will deliver.
The candidates share similar policies. Both say they will revive the economy and deal with food security.
Many Kenyans we've spoken to say they want a better life. They want good jobs. They're worried about corruption and the huge public debts. Some say they don't trust their politicians.
Odinga and Ruto have attracted huge crowds, but they also know such gatherings do not necessarily translate to votes. Catherine Soy, Al Jazeera, Nairobi.
Everything that's reported on television isn't always true, but it should be. NTD, the power of truth. Now available 24/7 on television and streaming platforms.
Thank you. Hey, I'm Ken McClinton, the host of the Exceptional Conservative Show, live from the nation's capital. I love this cat, the Exceptional Conservative Show cat, Jacob. We love you, and we want you to know we love the fact that you watch TECNTV.com. As chairman, founder, and president, we wish you much love and much affection. I love you. I love you.
Hey, this is Pastor Greg right here watching TECNTV.com live and enjoying. You should join me here on ChildrenGenerationRadio.com. And also my other favorite thing, ministering the gospel in India.
Hi, I'm Bob Record, and as you can see, I love hunting. And I also love watching TECNTV.com. Why don't you join me in doing that? But in the meantime, I'm headed back to the field. See you later.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Jones from Beyond the Lines. And when I'm not exploring Los Angeles, I am watching TECNTV.com. TECNTV.com. I love it.
I'm David McQuell. I'm the host of Global Impact on TECN. I'm a missionary in Abidjan, West Africa, working on establishing the largest history center. Whether I'm in the field or I'm working on history, I love TECN TV.
When I'm not making delicious cookies, I'm watching TECNTV.com.
Hi, I'm Randy, and I love the golf. And I love TECNTV.com.
Oh, yeah. So, welcome back to the show. David McQuell today hosting Global Impact on TECNTV.com. We are looking at the Kenyan election that just came to a close. And we are hoping and praying that it will be a free and a fair election. Previous elections in Kenya, just like many other elections in Africa, have been bloody. And main of the reason is because it is always tribal or, in some cases, religious. And we're going to continue our coverage in this second half. We want to look at the issues. And some of the issues, again, will fall back on the issue of violence and other things. But please, let's look at this BBC brief report first.
One of its most contested presidential elections in recent years. The country's deputy president, who fell out with the current leader Uhuru Kenyatta, is going up against a long-standing politician, Raila Odinga. Kenyans are going through a difficult time at the moment, cost of living crisis. They also want corruption to be tackled. The BBC senior Africa correspondent Anne Soy reports from Nairobi.
flaunting financial might on Kenya's campaign trail. Here, politicians pull out all stops to gather and show off the largest crowds. Hardly any questions are asked about its cost and how come politicians pull huge crowds every day of the week for months, if not longer.
Bottom.
That politicians pay people to attend the rallies is a foregone conclusion. But they all promise to fight corruption should they get elected.
Nobody is indispensable in this war against corruption.
When you were in government, your office, the office of the Prime Minister, was investigated over some corruption scandals.
The name of the office of the Prime Minister was mentioned that it was under investigations. But there's no evidence that anybody in the office of the Prime Minister did any wrong.
He is running on a platform of fighting corruption and has promised to give $50 a month stipends to poor families. His main opponent, Deputy President William Ruto, is also promising to deal with corruption. He has promised bottom-up economics and uses the slogan "Hustler" that seems to have struck a chord with the smallest of traders.
You know, politics in Kenya has been around people who have brands. Either your father was this or your father was that. I can tell you, my father was not even a headman in our village.
Questions have been asked about his meteoric rise in politics and personal wealth. Like this expressway, some of the largest projects since independence, and it's borrowed heavily to finance them.
We're literally caving under the high level of public debt in the country. But we know that what has also made the public debt levels rise is corruption. If we continue to have those corrupt people, or people with questionable integrity, ethics, and characters in office, it means we'll always struggle with in terms of ring-fencing our resources, from pilferage.
This election has the same old faces in new political outfits. But whoever wins, voters do not expect much will change. And with such opulence on the campaign trail, it's hard to see how Kenya's next leader can control corruption or even attempt to end it. Ann Soy, BBC News, Nairobi.
Well, then somebody said that all that the Western media shows is the bad side of Africa, but these are really issues that this has nothing to do with the West. In this respect, I agree that true. Sometimes also it's corrupt African leaders have partners in the West. That's an issue for another day. But again, we have a problem in Africa. And these are some of the issues that they are bringing up, the issue of corruption, And every time we come beating the drums for democracy, go out there and vote them, we have no way, neither have we found ways in which we can hold these people accountable. Those people that are looting our money, borrowing money to spend on themselves and on their own self. I mean, that was really sad, the end of that report, talking about how whoever wins the election, it doesn't matter. The person will not be able to, or is not in the right place to control corruption because they are part of the system. It is the old species in new clothing. And that's really a big issue for Africans as elections come and elections go. And we must have a way in which we look carefully at this issue. That's where, for me, the position of the church comes in. Are we saying that as Christians, we cannot raise godly people who are not moved by money, by fame, and by power? Are you trying to say that the scriptures tells us that there were people who were exceptional in their services, like David, like Joseph, like Daniel in Babylon, and many other people who were really very honest, men of integrity, who distinguished themselves in political office in the Bible days? Are you saying that we cannot have people like that in our own time? Are we saying that the church cannot? Or is it that the church has really not taken its time to build on? I think personally that it's a reflection of the problems in the church. The church is not growing believers. It's not discipling believers. The church is not bringing people closer to God. People who has values, and their values are basically godly values, values from Scripture. South Africa. Sorry for the noise coming in. So, are we saying that as a church we cannot raise men again like Joseph, men again like Daniel, men again like David, people who will put values like honesty, like sincerity, like hard work, like loyalty and faithfulness in their lives, so that when they are elected into office, we can see these values in them, and even unbelievers, even the Muslims, even the ungodly, the traditionalists, the animists, they will also see and say, wow, this man is truly honest and truly different. So this system, rhythmically, we keep playing it and every elections come, and then even people who are Christian claim to be Christians, and go out there as Christians, and they try to whip up religious emotions, as in the case in Kenya. There was a conflict on this issue. We really don't have enough time to go into it. But again, the church will definitely have to rise. We have to rise. We have to rise to the place where we become relevant. And the only way to become relevant is to act in a way that our faith is reflected. Our faith is reflected in the way we do things, in the way we present ourselves before the world. I'll be right back after this break.
Everything that's reported on television isn't always true, but it should be. NTD, the power of truth. Now available 24/7 on television and streaming platforms.
What happened to the church? To the living, powerful, transformative, nation-shaking Christianity?
What they're trying to do is completely demolish Western civilization and then to rebuild it in a just society.
How do you break down American Christianity?
I think the problem today in our culture is many of our words have been co-opted and stolen and dumbed down and reversed.
Social justice is sold as something that it isn't. Critical race theory is sold as something that it isn't.
Whiteness has caused blindness of heart. Whiteness has caused blindness of heart.
When you preach victimization, it always leads to vengeance and vice. Us against them, me against you, I want my pound of flesh.
American churches today are where the universities were 10 years ago. Pretty heavily Marxist. They're not quite there yet, but they're well on the way. Many of the seminaries and Bible colleges are definitely already there.
That message that they're going out and taking the world is not, you need to repent of your sin, receive Christ. Instead, the message that you actually have is they are under the weight of racism or sexism or homophobia, and then we need to unify them together.
I'm gay, I'm 29, I'm a youth pastor in New Jersey.
I'm straight, and I'm also a youth pastor in New Jersey.
We're planning on sharing life together for the rest of our lives, which we're not totally sure what that looks like. Obviously, Nick is straight, and he does plan on getting married. When he has a wife one day, she'll make those decisions with us.
The future damage of what we're doing now is just going to be enormous.
The entire fabric of family, personal wealth, private property, all those things are out the door. And everything is the state. They believe the state is God.
They don't define justice the same way as the scripture.
Oh no, it's going to be an equality, all right. And it's going to be a totalitarian Marxist justice.
All right, so welcome back to the show. David McQuail here, hosting Global Impact on TECNTV.com. Thank you so very much for tuning in today, as you usually do. We appreciate you, and we'll really love to hear from you. And for a moment, we will have our email address. Scroll down the bottom of your screen. We'd like to hear from you what you think about our show, what we're doing. And then we really love to know how you feel about what we do, and really makes us better. It helps us improve on our show. God bless you. Thank you so very much for tuning in. Again, we are talking about Kenya's election today. Kenya voted already, and I believe that the votes are being counted as we speak. However, we are looking at the overall election because it's very important. One of the things that really impressed me was the fact that the preparation for diaspora voting, which is really quite impressive. I think many countries in Africa haven't gotten there yet. It's something that should be done. It's really good, because how do you have millions of people outside the country and they are sending a lot of money back home, and yet they have no say in what happens in elections back home? I don't think it is. It's like taxation without representation. I think it's very important that people who contribute to the development of the country, to the economy heavily, should also have a say. They should also have a say in how election goes. So Kenya has really done good there. I think many other countries do that in Africa, but most countries have not yet got into that, which is something that can be done. I love the way Kenya is doing it. So I learned from there. Today again we go looking at the issues of the election. We want to look at what was the thoughts of the youth. You know, the youth. Kenyan population is heavily a youthful population. You know, really a youthful population. Kenya's population is 70%. I would say 70% under 35 years. That's incredibly so. We got to look at the youth, their questions, and how probably they feel about the elections. Let's just take a look at this BBC report.
I just want to begin with this. Gone are the days where we thought the youths are the leaders of tomorrow, because, to be sincere, tomorrow is just a fantasy. So youths are the leaders of today. But now the question is there hope for the youth? In all institutions, it can be inclusion in the economy, in politics. Is there really hope, or here we are just for the debate?
Yeah. Ronnie, is there hope for the youth?
I think there's hope. You know, you can feel the energy in the room. And, you know, when you see the kind of passion that our young people have, the kind of ambition they have for this country, the demand that they have to be included and to be part of the process, that in itself indicates that there's hope. I think we need to be fixing some things. Some are legal, some are structural, some are societal, like somebody mentioned, that need to be fixed. I want to dissuade our young people from believing that politics is cheap. It's not. Not just in Kenya, anywhere in the world. Political campaigning is an extremely expensive affair, anywhere. The skill you need to learn with that, however, and I'm not saying that there are things we cannot fix. I think there are things we can fix. We can have a more progressive agenda for inclusion of young people in political processes. But I think the youth need to understand that to go into political campaigning, you need to have very strong fundraising skills. And you need to invest. So it needs to be a long run. It needs to be something that you don't just wake up one day and say, Lindy, for example, deserves a better MCA. And you wake up in the middle of the night and the next day you've started printing posters. It's the long run. And I think as leaders of tomorrow, you need to appreciate that leadership is also about patience. It's the long game. The leaders of today, okay, sorry, leaders of today. It's the long game. And, you know, for all those who are invested in politics, I normally say there are three things you need in politics.
Right.
One is a strong narrative, What do you want to offer the people? You have to think through that. You have to invest in it. You have to study it so that you have the right solutions. The second thing is...
All right, so yeah, so you have to have money. Money, politics is very expensive and getting even more expensive. How can a young man who has a vision, so if you have a dream, you have an understanding, you have great knowledge on how you can solve Kenya's issues or South African issues or Rwanda's issues, but you don't have money. So you have to go and begin to probably start a business and raise money, and who knows when that money will come. You know, I don't think that's a good answer enough for that question, but you could see that that's the question in the minds of the young people. How do I participate in politics? That's the reason why in Africa we have old people, old guys who should have been on retirement 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and they are still the ones battling in the front of politics. Some of them are really very sick, some of them are very old, they can't see very well, simply because it is a game of money. You have to have money. In other parts of the world, for example, in the Western world, you really don't have to have money to go into politics. You should be able to convince people to support you, to finance your campaign by donating. And that's probably what we should be doing in Africa. That's the reason why those who want to go into politics in Africa have to steal money, have to loot money. Because when I'm going to raise $5 million, when I'm going to raise $5 million as an African who there are no jobs, there is no business, you know, I mean, the situation is really terrible. So if we will wait until we get money, we will never fix the situation. Again, talking about money, here is an analysis of the Kenya election.
How expensive is it to win an election in Kenya? Well, simple answer, you need money, big money. Aspirants are using millions of dollars in their campaigns to win political seats whose cumulative salary over the period of service doesn't come anywhere near the spend. But why should you care about it? Let's start with the context. In 2021, Kenya's Electoral Commission introduced campaign financing regulations to cap campaign spending and political contributions for various political seats. The intention was to promote transparency and accountability in election campaign financing. But members of parliament rejected the regulations. They said the proposed regulations were in total contravention of the law. And this gave leeway for politicians to continue using unlimited amounts of money to fight for political seats. The bill would have ensured a presidential aspirant spends no more than 4.4 billion Kenyan shillings over the campaign period. That's about $38 million. The electoral body is not the only one concerned about this spending. This study estimates that in the 2022 general election, anyone vying for a Senate seat may require a budget of about $393,000. Now, a woman vying for a county women representative seat may require over $230,000. And anyone vying for the position of member of the National Assembly will require about $222,000 for their campaign. And for those vying to become a member of the county assembly, they'll require a campaign budget of approximately $30,000. Now, these are just estimates, and some are way below the caps that were proposed by the electoral body. But how is this money being spent? Transport takes the biggest chunk. Helicopters, four-wheel drive vehicles, and big campaign trucks create the show. Advertising and publicity comes in next. A leading TV station has been broadcasting politicians' campaign messages at a special rate of $4,957 for 30 seconds, airing twice a day for a week. We'll leave you to do the math. Now, there are some costs that you might miss, like party application fees for aspirants. Big parties charge their presidential flag bearers a non-refundable fee of $8,547. Constituency and county level positions attract fees of between $1,068 to $4,274, depending on the party. Now, at the same time, the electoral body is collecting $1,709 from presidential candidates and $427 from gubernatorial and senatorial candidates. Now, this study raises concerns on the extent to which big money may influence the integrity of the electoral processes and consequently the impact that it may have on electorate's confidence in political institutions.
dreams are potential seeds. They need someone to believe in them. They need someone to finance them. And they need someone to embrace them. Partner today with the World Mission Center, Abidjan, the Ivory Coast, and help us win Africa for Christ.
Everything that's reported on television isn't always true, but it should be. NTD, the power of truth. Now available 24/7 on television and streaming platforms.
All right, so welcome back. As we wrap up this show tonight, again, I'm trying to check out the updates from Kenya. I'm seeing from the Nation, Nation Online, Nation.Africa Online, live updates from Kenya. Could see that this is already updated, really updated. Provincial result as follows. At 9:53, that's 5 minutes ago, updated. Counting has begun. Raila Odinga has 50.69%, which is 80,590 votes. William Ruto has 48.66%. Which is 77,366. George Wajakoya has 0.46. That's under 1%, And David Waiga has 0.18, which is just about 286. So you could see that counting is going on so far. Raila Odinga is leading as it was expected. So we hope that much later we will hear whatever it is new. So you can follow online. You can go to nation.africa /Kenya news and follow up, or on BBC, on many other news channels. But thank you so very much. We really appreciate you today. Thank you for tuning in. We will be back tomorrow looking at the Nigerian elections as it is heating up. God bless you. Thank you so very much, and we appreciate you, and we will be with you again tomorrow at the same time. Meanwhile, continue to enjoy TCNTV.com. God bless you. Bye-bye.